Hi, it's Roberto here. I just want to apologise ahead of this episode for causing any deja vu to regular listeners. I announced the last one with Mark Hirschberg as 36, when in fact that was, of course, 35. I've been recording so much lately, as well as being super busy with my day job. The introducing by episode number system is going out the window week by week. Please forgive me, and on with the show. Welcome to episode 36 of the Tailoring Talk Show with me, your host, Roberto Revilla. I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer, and owner of Roberto Revilla London suit and shirt makers. This is the podcast where you drop in for the threads but often leave with something quite unexpected. I talk to self-starters and creators about their journeys, the highs and lows, and the lessons they've learned along the way. If you haven't already, please support me by subscribing and adding a rating and a review. This really helps with those pesky search algorithms and helps me to grow the show. On today's episode, I'm joined by Kuldip, Singh, Sahota, affectionately known as Kooks. Kooks and I met through Founders Club, and he has fast become an important source of inspiration and mentorship in my life. He's the owner or co-owner of at least 3 businesses at this point in time, Mr. Singhs, Kushy Face, and 2 Bears, in addition to his role with ActionCoach UK. Once an entrepreneur without a life, he now has multiple businesses able to run without him. Kooks is definitely going to be a returning guest as we have so much more to cover, but for now, please enjoy my first conversation with this amazing entrepreneur. Enjoy. Hi Tailoring Talkers, it's your host Roberto Revilla. I'm here today with entrepreneur and coach Kooks Sahota. Kooks, how are you?
Very good, thank you, mate. Very excited to be here. This is my first actual legitimate podcast conversation, so I'm very excited to do it.
So I'm your first?
Yeah, pop my cherry with you, mate. I wouldn't have it any other way.
I'm honoured.
Yeah.
So this has been 12 months now since we started.
Mm-hmm.
So for audience at home, Kooks and I met through Founders Club, which I talked about a couple podcast episodes ago. And Kooks is a coach. And again, a lot of you will know, if you've listened to the last couple of episodes, I've been talking a lot about mental health and my business journey and kind of where I've been at, along with some of the other entrepreneurs that I've been speaking to. And Kooks gave a great presentation to a select number of members of the club. And it had such an impact on me. And we have met since in real life. You are such an inspiring individual. So you're running. So where do I find you at the moment? Because for some reason in my head, you're in North London somewhere. But have I got that wrong?
Yes. I mean, I've frequented North London, but I'm based in East London, born and raised.
So you're born and raised East London because
yes.
So our connection, so Cal Pesh, who obviously one of the founders of Founders Club.
Yeah.
He and I were best friends at primary and infant school.
I didn't know that.
Right. So that's the thing, right? You and I have met recently, but I've got the feeling that in our youth, at some point, we've been in each other's kind of sphere, but not realised it.
I suspect that's true. So I've known KP and Sonny. So Sonny, KP's brother, I've known him since, I don't know what year, but essentially uni. So my wife went to Brunel, and I was at Central St Martin's. So I studied art foundation and then fashion promotions. So I'm an art student essentially. Yeah. And I used to go and see her because all of a sudden my girlfriend's got her own space, and she's at university and there's parties. So I used to go and see her and stay there. And when she was in lectures, I would essentially just grab people and make them my friend. And I used to go there so much and meet so many different types of people. I then connected with Sunny, and we bonded over the kind of entrepreneur story, the hustle story. We were both hungry to do something with ourselves, and that's what connected us. And so we became really close friends quite quickly at university, even though it wasn't my university. So I've known him since then. And then naturally, because through Sunny, I've known KP and their circle of friends in South London. Yeah. So that's how I know them, when they were doing kind of club nights and things like that. And so we've basically been friends ever since then. And actually, my first business was with Sunny. So I used to be a stockbroker for a couple of years, worked in corporate finance for a bit in the city. And I then started working with Sunny in a company which basically they were real estate agents, but they sold property in India to people outside of India. So, about 10 years ago, there was a massive boom and everyone was trying to buy over there, but there was no one bridging the gap until this company came along. So I joined that company as part of the investment team with Sunny, and we started dealing with investors here in the UK that wanted to buy not one apartment, but 10 and do deals like that. But then very quickly, we realized that there was an opportunity to actually take the customer service that we're used to here in the UK and take that over to India, because these developers were making so much money. They didn't care about customer service, that they would sell out, 100 apartments within 10 minutes. And so the first business I set up with Sunny was a property development business out in India, in Gujarat. I'm Punjabi, born and raised in London, so my Punjabi is iffy at best. I don't speak Hindi or understand Hindi. I don't speak Gujarati or anything like that. But Sunny, his wife's from Gujarat. His father-in-law has been a builder there for 35 years. So the natural step was for us to go out there and buy 5.5 acres of land and build 152 apartments, which is what we did. And so that was my first business with Sunny, and we built these apartments. And as that business was coming up and as it was growing, I kind of simultaneously and by accident started my family business, which I'll go into later. And I kind of sold out of that business and focused on the family business afterwards. And so, yes, I know KP, I know Sunny really, really well. We've been on this journey for a while now. We've seen each other's ups and downs. We've seen each other grow and develop. And I suspect the same with you and KP. And, you may drift and come close, but you've seen people change over time. And so that's the connection and how it all works.
So for us, it was a bit more dramatic than that. So in terms of the, drift and come together kind of thing. So we were meant to go to the same secondary school, because we were at Norbury Manor in Croydon.
Okay.
And Kalpesh and I were tight, right? He was my best friend. He was like the brother that God didn't give me.
Right.
And my upbringing was quite troubled. Obviously, it wasn't easy for KP and Sunny as well. Their mum raised them practically on her own. I lived a road away. Yeah, I was a road away. So my upbringing was quite tough because, my father was quite a disciplinarian. My mum and dad had me, I think, when they were quite young, and they had a lot of other stuff going on, a lot of other pressures and so on. And so, and I wasn't the best behaved child. But then some of the ways that I used to get punished, not being able to see my friends and so on, and it put a lot of pressure on me. And as I got older and got more and more frustrated as the years went by, I was constantly trying to run away from home. But I would always inevitably end up at KP's house.
Right, okay.
His mum would take me in and feed me. And then, my mum and dad, to be honest, it was kind of the best place to go, because KP's mum was always so loving, and KP would always just be so super excited if I turned up on the door, right? Because your best friends when you're kind of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old is the best thing ever for your friend to get, and he'd just be so excited. And then he would get so disappointed when my mum or my dad would turn up on the doorstep, because it was the worst place to go, because they knew where I would end up.
Right.
So I never got that sleepover. And I remember his mum would I mean, she would feed me and feed me and feed me. I mean, that woman had such a big heart. And, you know, as a kid, when my parents obviously did love me, but I wasn't feeling it, right? Like, you can love someone, but if you're not really showing it, they're not feeling it, then there's that disconnect. And, you know, she treated me like, so we were best friends. But then when we got to the end of primary school, our secondary school got turned into an old people's home and got shut down. So we all had to go our separate ways. And I think KP ended up going to, I want to say Stanley Tech, but I'm not sure. And I ended up going to Ingram, which is one of the worst schools in the country, like definitely one of the most violent as well. And then we just lost touch because, you know, back in those days, it was all landline numbers and that sort of thing. You know, we'd gone our separate ways. You make new friends. You're in a completely different environment. And we just lost touch completely. And it was only probably about 6 or 7 years ago. So now you're talking like 25, 26, 27 years later. I was at a meeting where I think it was the head of marketing for Porsche UK, and he was talking about Asian Wealth magazine. And I said, yeah, I know Asian Wealth magazine. I read it when I can go pick it up from people's lobbies and stuff. So I'm highly aware of it. And he said, well, you know, the guy who runs that, you need to really meet him. He connected me with KP's assistant. A meeting was set up at the Savoy. So I'm sat there. And then KP walks in. So I turned around and looked at him. And you know, when KP walks into a room, you can't, like, it doesn't matter how busy or big the place is, you know that guy's walked in. So immediately I've turned around to look at this guy who's just walked in, and we locked eyes straight away. I knew exactly, I was like, Kalpesh? And he was like, Bobby? I was like, yeah, what are you doing here? He was like, I think I'm here to meet with you. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm here to meet with you. And then we kind of stood up and probably just looked at each other for a couple of seconds, just regarding each other, right? Because it's just the same face. His face hasn't changed since he was little, 6 years old. And then we just hugged each other. And, you know, that was that. And then we've kind of been loosely in touch since. And then it was when he started Founders Club and I was keeping an eye on that. I want to be part of that. And it's just really, really good to be back in his sphere again, you know.
Nice. I had no idea. That's an incredible story. Now, what a way to reconnect. It's phenomenal.
So Sonny and I, you know, obviously I knew Sonny, but when Sonny was around, he was just the, you know, Jordabai, right?
The little brother.
It's kind of like, So he, I mean, he said when he saw me recently, he said he kind of remembers me. But obviously we didn't really interact and stuff because it was always the KP show.
Right.
I mean, we were always up to stuff, you know, plotting and scheming and, you know, I mean, some of the stories I could tell you, really. I'm going to save a couple of them for when we're actually together.
Okay.
KP might not even remember them, but one that I can say is I remember once we, like KP got us onto collecting ink cartridges, right? Do you remember those kind of fountain pens? They had the little blue, plastic kind of canister things. You punched them into the top of the pen and screwed it on. So he got into sort of just collecting all these inks. And basically what we were going to do is we were going to develop a device that would be able to capture ghosts. And the big idea was, which I think was actually me and KP, we came up with it together, was that a ghost has to be a physical kind of entity, right? Because it has to exist in space. So if we could collect all this ink and put it into some sort of system that could then shoot like a proton pack at the spirit, right? We would hit it with ink and then we'd know where it is. I don't think we thought past that point. But that was, we were going to become Ghostbusters, basically. That was one of them. And I remember another time we were designing and developing our own car company. So we were going to design a car. So then I went on this whole thing where I kept a little notebook, and every single day I would write down every single car I saw and tally them up because it was part of our market research. Now, how old do you think we were when we were doing that?
maybe 10.
Dude, we were in primary school early. We were like second year of primary school. So what's that, like 7 or 8 years old?
No way, that's incredible.
7 or 8 years old.
I love it.
And KP was already on the whole marketing thing and already delegating as well.
Oh, fair enough. Nice.
So I've got very fond memories. And he's, I don't know if he can still do the moves, but, you know, he had pretty much all of Michael Jackson's moves down to a T. I think it was my 10th birthday party. He brought the Bad album.
Okay.
Along on cassette tape so that I could record it from him. He had my mum basically just put the auto reverse function on the cassette player and just play that damn thing non-stop for my entire birthday party.
No way, that's incredible.
Yeah. You didn't know any of this?
I had no idea. I'm gonna I'll be bringing it up next time I see them.
Well, I mean, he's probably, if he listens to this, then I'm probably going to get a right proper thumper across the face, isn't it? But yeah, anyway, so there we go. So it's the same kind of sphere. But you know, when we actually met for real recently, it was just really, really nice. Just I just felt like we had that sort of click. It's just a shame that I'm just constantly exhausted, but you know, that's a story for another time. But speaking of constantly exhausted, so what really, really impacted me was when you showed an old photo of yourself.
Yeah.
There was a picture of you 10:30 at night on a Saturday. I think you posted it on social media and you were proudly saying, you know, in the office, this is Mr. Singh's crisps, I believe,
Yeah,
or your
yes, the family business.
the family business, which started with the sauces, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, you'll tell me the story in a minute. And what you said about that photo is at the time when you posted it, you were really proud, right?
Yeah.
Look, hey, I'm in you know, running the business on a Saturday night, packing orders up, ready to go out. But looking back on it, like that's nothing to be proud of. I've totally been there myself, you know, where I kind of proudly tell people, oh yeah, I work 7 days a week and I, you know, live on about 4 hours sleep, like proudly. But actually now I'm thinking that's actually nothing to boast about. That's actually really sad.
You are right. And so I feel I've thought about this a lot over time, and I feel like maybe it was my first role in the city. You know, you work in the city as a broker, and that culture exists of working all the time and money. Also, perhaps it's something to do with your upbringing. You know, Punjabi, Asian upbringing is just work. That's the thing. Work. My parents and grandparents, they came from Africa, so all they did was work. And so it's kind of instilled in you that you work all the time, which is fine. Like it's okay to work all the time, but there's a difference between where you're just doing a job and working in your business all of the time versus working on perhaps what could be a hobby or a passion or something that enhances your life rather than just running the business because there's no other way for that business to work without you. And that's what that picture was about. Me celebrating 10:17 p.m. on a Saturday night. It's me saying, oh, look, I'm hustling whilst everyone else is out partying and doing whatever they're doing, but I'm here working. And, you know, I think the whole thing that was wrong with it for me was, like you said, I was celebrating the fact that I was still in a job and at work running my own business rather than living life. And I didn't realize the difference between the two at the time. And so that's why it's posted as a celebratory post on my social to say to our followers and to our customers, look, we're still here. We're still caring about what we do whilst you're enjoying yourself. So have a drink on us. And so, yeah, the reason it's in the presentation is because that personifies what I thought business was about and what I thought life was about. And I realized through coaching, through mentorship, that's not what it is about. That's not what business is about or should be about. That's just, like we've talked about many times, being in a job that I can't leave with a boss that's a lunatic, i.e. me. So that's what it was about.
Funny, because when you describe having a boss as a lunatic, one thing a lot of clients ask when they find out that our business is myself and my wife, and they always look at me, and it's usually the ones who are shocked the most are the ones who are on their third or fourth marriages.
Right.
And it's like you guys work together and you're still together. And I was like, look, listen, it's worked for however long we've been doing it, 10, 11 years. But I have to say, I don't know how she puts up with me because I am an absolute nightmare to work with. because I think I am a psycho. And yeah, it's just agreed. You get into conversations sometimes about crazy bosses that you've had, right? And you've all got our David Brents and Michael Scotts and whoever else. But when I actually think about every boss I've ever had and think about the worst one I've had, it is actually me, I think.
What boss would make you work 7 days a week? What boss would make you feel guilty if you took a day off? What boss would make you work without pay if times were hard? What boss would feed negative thoughts into your mind and beat yourself up, make you beat yourself up? Like, no boss in the world would do that, and if they did, they would be ostracized in society because it's outrageous behavior. Yet, as a business owner that is working in the business, that's what you do to yourself, because you're not taught any other way, unless you're fortunate enough to be exposed to that knowledge and you go into business knowing how to do it the right way. Most of the time, and a lot of the people that I come across, that's how they treat themselves. And as a boss, that's how they're treating themselves. But you wouldn't do that to anyone else. But yet, for some reason, we make it okay to do it to ourselves. And I think it's because, from my experience at least, that you don't know any other way, and you don't know any other way out until you come across it. And then when you see the other way, it's all just starts to make sense because you've got such a negative to contrast it to. And then you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. I don't have to work 7 days. I can maybe do 6 or 5. And I can still have a more profitable, more successful business than if I was working all of the time. Look, you read stories of people like Elon Musk. They work 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And, I can understand where someone like him, if he's passionate about engineering, he's passionate about solving these types of problems, then it consumes you as an obsession, because you're not really working. You're just, you're creating technical solutions to a problem that doesn't have a solution as of yet. So I can understand how it can consume, but most of the time, if you're just building a business for the sake of building a business, and you've got a product that you're selling or a service that you offer, it doesn't need to go to that extent. You can earn a good living, you can make a good living, earn good dividends, and build something highly successful, multi-7-figure business if that's what you want, and within those time constraints of a regular working week.
Yeah, I mean, I think my behavior is definitely learned, because my dad worked non-stop after my grandfather died, because he brought a big carpet business over from India, and in the 70s, and he had 2 restaurants as well. But my grandfather, he knew how to live life. Like, he lived in central London. He was always out hanging out with high society and stuff like that. So he knew, he got it right, I think. But then what he made sure happened is that everybody under him was working their nuts off. Right. So he was clever. And then my dad, after my grandfather died, so this is my maternal grandfather, but my dad was quite involved in his business, because he was pretty much everyone in the family was working. I mean, even me. So like, my mum and dad didn't pay for childcare or send me to nursery or whatever. My nursery was being at the restaurant or at one of the stores. So I would frequently just wander out of the office without anybody noticing, like literally as soon as I could walk. Toddler, you imagine a toddler, you and your wife are there looking at rugs or carpets or whatever, and then you've got this little toddler just tapping you on the leg, and you turn and you look down, and then this little kid just goes, "Can I help you?" Like, and then all of a sudden, one of my uncles or my dad or whoever would sort of run along and pick me up and go, "Just ignore him, sorry." But, that's what else was I supposed to do? Sit in a corner and play crayons? I wanted to go see what the grown-ups were doing, and then I would copy them. And then when my grandfather died, my dad went and he was working for someone else, got made redundant, then he started his own business. But then he was running the business from home, so he could never escape it. He was working 7 days a week because he needed to try and keep a roof over our heads. I mean, to the point where I remember when my sister was born, I was only about 5 years old at the time, but my dad told my mum, stay in hospital with her as long as you can, because I can't feed all of you. So he was working his own job. He was working 2 or 3 jobs. I'm sure he was working 2 or 3 jobs at that time. And, I was getting fed, own brand baked beans and a slice of bread or whatever.
Yeah.
It was that bad. But then that just carried on. So eventually, he started his business, and he bought a retail premises, and then he bought the one next door. So now in retirement, he's got a good little rental income and so on. But even at the age of 71, he's just turned 70. He's still, even if there was no work or it was a day off, a Sunday, he would still be doing something. So if the plumbing had gone wrong in the house, he'd get a Haynes manual, he'd read it, like Neo in the Matrix, right? I don't know how to do plumbing, but I can't read instructions.
You don't?
Yeah, I don't. My dad.
Yeah, but you just like me.
Oh, okay. Do you know we're actually recording a podcast episode here?
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, everyone. So he would read a Haynes manual, like Neo in the Matrix gets all the information uploaded into his brain. And then he'd start taking radiators off the walls and, tell me to go and get his plumbing bag, which had all the plumber's equipment in it, wrenches and soldering iron kits and all this other stuff. And he'd just go and replumb the house. The electrics went wrong, strip the wiring out the walls and so on, and just do it all himself. Bricklaying needs done, new roof, this, that. To this day, he's still, I rang him, I remember a couple months back, the weather was really bad and everything. I rang just to check in on him. He's up on the roof of one of the flats, fixing the felt that had come off or something like that. I just said to him, Dad, why don't you get someone else to do it? He said, you can't trust these people. And then I have to be up here to keep an eye on them anyway. So if I have to be up here to keep an eye on them, I might as well do it myself. So that's where I get it from.
That is an old school mentality, and I know it really, really well.
You get it.
I know it so well.
Right?
You grow up with it.
Yeah, but somehow you managed to kind of break free. So when Mr. Singh's Sauces is where it kind of was your main thing with the family business, right? And then the Chris came along later.
Yeah, so we had the property business with Sonny. That was well underway. Building we'd broken ground. We were building the apartments. We were selling really well. I was kind of responsible for brand sales, marketing for the business, and essentially my dad, he'd always he was a lecturer doing graphic design and product design, but he'd always moonlighted as a chef at these East African members clubs that were springing up. So you've got some in South, East, North London, and they do this kind of Kenyan style Indian food. So it's kind of barbecue inspired, maybe a little bit more spicy, slight twist. And he was always good at cooking. So he'd been doing this for years, and he developed this sauce. And a lot of the people that used to come to where he was kind of running the kitchen at the time, bear in mind he was lecturing during the day, they were all shopkeepers, and they'd say to him, look, sell this sauce, sell the sauce, sell the sauce. And people used to fly in from Scotland. I remember serving, because I worked there naturally for 6p an hour or something like that. But I worked there, and I remember speaking to this group, and a couple of them had flown in specifically for the weekend to eat at this place, to have my dad's bhajia and the chicken wings and his chili sauce. Oh. And so we knew it was a good. I mean, we'd obviously grown up with it because he did this kind of Kenyan style kebabs when we were having barbecues at home with all his brothers and stuff. So we knew about the product, and the shopkeepers wanted it. So he'd kind of bottled it. He'd been out trying to sell it, but he's a very soft person. He's not really a sales type of person. He's just one of these kind of big ideas type of person who just gives things away, and that's how he is. And so he'd been out trying to sell it and just getting knocked back from all these little corner shops. And I remember he walked in one day. He had this blue, those cheap blue plastic bags. and it was raining outside, so he was soaking wet from the rain, and we were used to him doing these weird things, right? We'd grown up with it. He'd turn up with a food truck outside the house one day, and he'd build something in the shed, and just always weird stuff. So like, all right, he's on to another one. And we were like, all right, what have you been doing now? And he said, oh, I've been out trying to sell my chili sauce. And so, yeah, he's soaking wet. He's told us that he's been out trying to sell the chili sauce without much luck. And we're like, okay, fine. And maybe it's serendipity or whatever, but about a week later, I saw an advert for the BBC Good Food Show, which is a big like food event in Excel. Sorry, not Excel. It's in Kensington Olympia. And it's basically 30,000 people over a weekend that are foodies. They turn up, and you've got hundreds of stalls of people selling food that they've created or food products. And so I saw an advert for that, and I booked a stand at the BBC Good Food Show for £900 on my credit card. And I came home and I said to my family, I don't know why I've done this, but I've just spent £900 on my credit card. We need to make 1,000 bottles of chili sauce so I can pay off my credit card. And for some reason, thankfully, everyone said yes. So my brother was newly married. I was married as well. So there were 7 of us together. And we spent the next, I think, week, 10 days, essentially destroying my mum's kitchen, learning how to make my dad's chili sauce, because he actually had no idea how to make it. He'd just kind of throw things together. But he'd already done like all the labeling and a few other bits. And so on the night before the show, I remember we were still cooking these sauces, and they're boiling hot because you have to boil them to kill all the bacteria.
Yeah.
We're filling these boxes with sauce. So each box was 35 kilos. Loading them into the back of the car and driving from East to West London to Kensington and hauling these 35-kilo boxes up the steps, like 6 flights of stairs to the top floor where the event was. And the show kicked off, and I kid you not, we literally just finished setting up the stand. We had the samples out, and this little old lady turns up, and we're like, there's no way she's going to try this. No way. Like, you imagine, Asian family from East London, 7 of us, all shouting about chili sauce, and all we are selling is chili sauce. And this little old lady turns up, and she says, "What's that?" It's bloody chili sauce, but she's like, "What's that?" So we're like, "It's a chili sauce. My dad's recipe, family. It's a family business. We made it yesterday. It's boiling hot." It's just telling her everything as it was, and she's like, "Oh, okay, I want to try some." So we're like, "Look, no, this is hot. It's not your regular Tabasco sauce. This is a bloody hot sauce."
Yeah, this is a new one.
We're like this, and she's like, "I like chili," and I said, "You might like chili," and I'm judging here. I have to be honest. So she's got a blue rinse, a purple rinse, whatever it's called. She looks like she's shrunk to about 4'5", right? She's got, she's like just wobbling around, walking around this food show. And I'm like, there's no way she's going to enjoy this. So like, fine, look, try it with a biscuit. And she tries it. And she doesn't blink an eyelid. And she picks up 2 bottles, gives us, I think it's £4 because they're £2 each. She's like, "I'll take this. And I think my son's going to like it as well." And she walks off, and we're like, we've just sold something that we've created, and to her. And then essentially that story continues for the whole weekend. We sell out by the Sunday. We're back at home counting the money. We're like, bloody hell, we've paid off everything, paid off the credit card, made a bit of money on this. But the magic thing was people loved this sauce.
Yeah.
So for the next year and a half, we just attended these food shows. And again, at the time, there was no one really doing chili sauce apart from us, and Reggae had come out a few years before.
Levi Roots, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's this, like I said, this loud family from East London, all different characters who've just made a chili sauce. And so you start to get a bit of a following. People are blogging about us and writing about us. All the chili heads are turning up because there's a subsection of society that just loves intense heat, which I never knew existed before. But we then get an email one day from the BBC, and we're like, I dismissed it because we used to get spam and stuff like that all the time. But I reread it, and they've asked us to audition for a TV show. And it's called High Street Dreams. Mm-hmm. And essentially the concept of it is that they find a home-based business like ours, and they take us on a journey to pitch the supermarkets to get onto the high street. And we went to the audition, and there were, I think, 15 other businesses there. It was an entire day of filming, massive film crew, a huge warehouse space in Kent somewhere. And we got selected. Like, out of all these people, they chose us and another company to be on this TV show. And we were like, what is going on here? We've attended maybe 10 or 15 shows over the last 18 months. And now all of a sudden we're going to be on BBC One TV. This is insane. And, you know, we'd had a bit of press because people were writing about us and blogging about us, but this was the next level. So they selected us, and we started filming in the new year. So we started filming in the new year. And then it was, I think, 2009, May 2009, I think it was, that it aired on BBC One TV. And it was like BBC One or BBC Two prime time on a Monday night, 9 p.m. Millions of people saw us. Our website crashed. And that was kind of like the official birth of Mr. Singhs and the family business. And I'd kind of like funded this all myself up until then. I'd made all the decisions. My family was working with me, but essentially it was on me kind of pushing it forward. And now all of a sudden we're supplying Asda, and we've been on this TV show, and everyone knows about us. And it was just this insane experience of going from nothing and making chili sauce in the shed to trying to supply Asda, but still making chili sauce in the shed. And yeah, you learn a lot very, very quickly. I mean, I can go into so much detail about what you learn and the mistakes that you make along the way, trying to scale up a product business like that. And, you know, fast forward a couple of years, I'd raised investment for the company because I'd self-funded for a long time. I then, with that investment, you know, we started putting ourselves on proper salaries and things like that. And we then just went gung-ho for it. We were very quickly in Harvey Nichols, we were in Selfridges, Ocado, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda. We were exporting to like South Africa, New York, I think at one point, Kenya. We were in Kenya because a couple of viral music videos. And it was just this incredible like rocket growth story. And tying it back to that picture you were talking about earlier, it was at that point that I realized I actually hated it, because it would just consume my life, and I had created myself a job that I couldn't leave. There were so many problems, and then when times were hard and I didn't know how to manage cash flow, I didn't know how to have consistent sales. There's so many things I didn't know. You know, there'd be times where I didn't get paid. I'd make sure like my family would get paid because they were on the payroll, but I wasn't getting paid at certain periods. And, you know, then there were times where I was getting paid, but there were these problems and that problem. And it was affecting mental health, relationship. It was affecting everything. And all I knew was that I just didn't want this anymore. That's all I knew. And I just sat there knowing that there's got to be something else. I don't want this. And it was during that period of time that I then got introduced to coaching, basically, to business coaching. And it was via a friend of mine who I'd always looked at him as being really successful. You know, he's got offices in Mayfair, always done really well, always looked the part. You know, he was investing in property at uni, you know, that type of, and I'm like, and I've come from East London from having no money at all. And I'm like, how's this person able to buy a house? And how's this person able to do all these other things? So I've got a lot of like mental baggage around money that I'm still unpacking at the time.
Yeah, same,
I've seen this guy just on a trajectory, getting better and better and better. But then all of a sudden he had like this hockey stick growth, where he was doing well, but then it just shot up. But he was working less. He'd set up a charity. He was doing all these incredible things. And I just said to him, I was like, dude, how are you doing this? Like, how is this possible? And he just said, look, I've got a business coach. And my initial response was an ego-based response. I said to him, why the hell do you need a coach? Like, you're already killing it. Why do you need a coach? Yeah. And I'd been approached in the past by people who claimed to be coaches, but maybe it was an ego thing, but also I had this thing about me that, like, why should I listen to someone that's just read a book? why am I going to pay attention to anyone that's not been through what I've been through? And so, I was chatting to my mate and he said, look, just speak to this guy, see what he's like, have a couple of sessions with him, and you make your own choice. It's not going to cost you anything. Go and check it out. And because I was at that point, that vulnerable point, and I'd had enough, similar to the conversation you and I have been having, because I was at that point, my mindset was open to change. My mindset was open to new ideas because I just knew what I had right now wasn't what I wanted. So there's got to be something else. And so I went along and I had, these kind of light bulb moments that were going off. And I realized that I was in the position I was in life because of me. It was all the choices that I was making, the decisions that I was making. And it's not necessarily my fault or anyone else's fault. It's just that I wasn't exposed to the right knowledge, or I wasn't seeking the right knowledge in the right way. And I didn't know how to, but here I was now making those steps. And so one of the biggest light bulbs that went off in my mind was that if I want to have a different life and a different type of business, I have to be a different type of person.
Yeah.
And so that was the journey and the transition that I went on. And actually in that presentation where I'm celebrating, working 10:17 on a Saturday night, and then there's a picture on next to it where it's my wife and I on holiday in Greece. And it's my first 7-day holiday in 7 years. Because every other holiday before then, I've got my laptop with me, I've got my phone with me. I'm not really on holiday.
You never switch off. You're always on it.
I'm sneaking in a couple of hours of work here, never really switched off. And they were always short breaks, like 3-4 days, 5 days. And there was guilt attached to that. But after that first session of coaching, I actually went to the station, and on the way to the station on my phone, I booked our first holiday, in the 7-day holiday in 7 years. And I called Amma and I said to her, look, we're going on holiday. I've booked it already. And that instant was when I changed how I wanted to do things and the type of life that I wanted to live. And so that's the journey that I went on. And now I'm still on, because there's still so much to learn in terms of business and building a business that can work without you versus being in a job, which is what I was doing before.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I've got to where I am now. And so in terms of where I am now, you said, how do I kind of describe what you do? And I describe myself as an entrepreneur and business coach. I've got several businesses, and most of my work now is gearing towards doing more and more coaching and helping people and speaking to people kind of go through the same transition and journey that I went on, because I know what it feels like to be there. I know the pain of it. And oftentimes it's simple little tweaks that we can make that will get us to where we want to get to. But if you don't know it, how are you supposed to make those changes? And so that's it.
But it's that experience that you've had, because you can empathize. And, it's like when this friend of yours said to you, I've got a coach, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how the hell does that work? I mean, firstly, from the point of view of the fact that he was just so successful, it's like, what do you need someone? But then when you think about great sports people, they all have coaches.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Top tennis players and so on. They don't just suddenly win a Grand Slam and then get rid of their coaching team. They always have a coaching team
always
around.
Learning, always have a mentor, always have a teacher. And for me, I was like, I read books. I watch YouTube videos, but that's all fair and well to a certain extent. But if there's no education to go alongside that, there's in each book, there's going to be certain pieces of knowledge that you will extract, and they may have an impact on you and cause some kind of paradigm shift. But unless it's consistent and focused and pinpoint accurate in terms of the type of knowledge that you're trying to acquire and how you're going to implement it, it's very easy to go down that route of just reading for the sake of reading and saying that, I'm an avid reader and I read tons of books. And that's where I was. And so I had to make changes in order to change my life.
Yeah. It's just the thing, because my library is extensive and I read as much as I can. But the thing is, your brain probably does store that information somewhere, or most of it, or some of it. I don't know what extent of it, but at least you read a book, maybe 20% of it is useful to you, and that actually does go into your brain somewhere. But what we then lack the ability to do, and it's, you know, a lot of it's to do with then we just get caught up in current reality again and all the stresses of daily life and trying to run a business and trying to earn money and make sure that we can pay the mortgage and all that sort of stuff. All that knowledge that has gone in isn't getting used. And for me, that's what, so it's a bit like, you know, you might have, you know, let's use football as are you into football?
Yeah.
Who do you support?
Well, it's a painful subject at the moment. Probably obvious when I say that.
Chelsea?
No. Even more painful. There's only one team that's more painful than what Chelsea's going through at the moment.
Well, it can't be Arsenal.
No. That's always been painful.
Who's more painful? Tottenham? No. More painful than Chelsea at the moment.
It's been consistently painful since 2015 or 20, whatever it was.
My mind's gone blank.
Man United.
Oh,
naturally, I'm a Londoner and I support Man United, of course.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really funny because when I'm at Regency Club on the night that there's a Manchester United game, but I don't know if every Asian in London is in there, basically.
Yeah,
exactly. The whole London Asian Manchester United support base is in that place on game night. Oh, yeah, sorry. As an Arsenal supporter, I've forgotten about you guys, obviously, because, you know, 3 games in hand, all that stuff.
We don't exist anymore.
No, do you know, I think it's such a real shame. But anyway, to bring the football analogy in, you know, you frequently hear where you've got players with potential where they then have to step the coaching up on those individuals because they've obviously got that talent, that knowledge that is unlocked, that is locked up inside them. And what a good coach does is it works alongside them to unlock all of that. Yeah. And you know, it's the same in business. I remember, so I was saying to Carolina yesterday after the call that we had with you, and we were talking about the difference between a consultant being someone who tells you what to do, as opposed to a coach who guides you and kind of gets you thinking for yourself, because it's the only way that we really learn. And I remember probably one of my best managers when I started in tailoring nearly 20 years ago, and I was working for a much bigger company. And when I was in the training phase, I would go to, it was Michael Duncan. And Mike, I'd go up to him to his desk with a problem or something that I couldn't work out. And I'd say to him, how do I do this? And he would never tell me how to do it. But he would usually turn around and he'd just look up at me and he'd smile and he'd say, well, what do you think you should do? Or where do you think the best starting place is? And then I remember the very first time we had this interaction, I said to him, well, can't you just tell me? And he didn't say no, he just repeated the question. So then I had no choice but to stand there and actually think about it. And then I'd say, well, maybe I would do this. And he's like, okay, and then what? And then he would just guide me, but he let me get it out myself. And that is the reason why it's partly the reason why I'm so good at what I do today.
Yeah.
That he was coaching me, wasn't telling me what to do.
And I think that, I mean, it's a great point. A great story to illustrate the point, because it's where I was in terms of my business. You know, I would let's say read books, or I'd hear people talk and they were just telling me things. I wasn't necessarily thinking for myself. And even when I was thinking for myself, there wasn't the follow-on interaction. There wasn't the follow-on questions to prompt me to carry on thinking along the right route so that I could finally get the answer. And it's funny, like when I'm coaching as well and I'm speaking to someone, and you actually get trained on this as well. There's a way to develop this skill, but you know the obvious answer. And the skill is to actually shut up, to ask the questions, and just, you can physically see people's cogs turning, and until it clicks, and then it clicks and they're like, oh, so I should do this. And it's like, yeah, of course, great, you figured it out for yourself, awesome. And now all of a sudden they've got a piece of knowledge they can teach someone else, and that's incredible. And I think the other benefit of being able to coach and teach others is that every session I conduct, I learn something new and recognize that there's a gap in my businesses that I need to be working on, and it just highlights that. And then you're constantly tinkering and tweaking and trying to improve what you have in place at the moment. And so it's an ongoing journey in that sense. But in terms of, just to give maybe whoever's listening and maybe to yourself as well some numbers, there's some stats. So you and I talked about making time for your business, to work on your business. So what does that mean? Working on your business means perhaps creating a recruitment strategy, perhaps writing up a marketing plan for your business, writing a culture statement and implementing the culture in your business. That stuff is working on your business. Taking client calls, going out to win new business, admin posts, that's working in the business, right? So on and in. In order for your business to work mostly without you, if you spend anywhere between 2 and 5 hours a week, okay, so 2 to 5 hours a week working on your business, you're looking at around about 7 years for your business to start working without you. The people that are really great at having their businesses work exceptionally well, they're spending about 20 hours a week working on their business. So most of the working day, 4-5 hours a day, is spent on the business. And people who do that from startup, or once the business gets going, they're looking at 2 to 3 years of just stepping away from the business and actually being able to sell it if they want to. So what I've learned, and again, I share this with everyone, is that, you know, if you want to get to the stage where your business is working without you, but, you know, obviously you and I discussed that if you're a craftsperson like you know, you love what you do and you're passionate about what you do, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to no longer be able to practice what you love. But it does mean that if you can build a business that can start to work without you, you're only doing the stuff that you love by choice, not because you have to.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the difference. And to get to that stage, you still have to go through that same journey. It's just that when you just know that actually you're building yourself a job in your organization, as in your case, the main tailor, the head creative, whatever you want to give yourself the title of, that's going to be your job for the foreseeable future. But there's other roles that other people are going to be doing, and you're going to build your business accordingly, so that all you do is maybe work 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week, whatever you want, but you're doing only the cool, fun stuff. You're creating new designs, you're sourcing new fabric, you're practicing new stitch techniques, or whatever it is that you want to do. That's what you're doing, because you don't have to worry about the other stuff. And so once you start to become aware of that and aware of your time and how you are spending your time in or on your business, is where the journey and the work really starts. And like I said, for me, it's an ongoing transition with my businesses to get to 95%, ideally 100% removed from the businesses for me. And so I'd say I'm probably 60 to 70% removed at the moment. There's work to do, but that's the journey. That's the journey. So I still work in some cases in the business. I try and spend as much time as I can on the business. And within all of that, I do the business coaching, because the opportunity came up for me to do that. And it was something that I was doing anyway, for free, for anyone that would listen to me, just because I wanted to share the knowledge. And I felt that anyone who's in business should know this stuff, because you're not taught how to build a business. You're taught how to be you're taught how to be a tailor, you're taught how to be a dentist, you're taught how to be an architect, you're taught how to be all these specialist traders or professionals, but you're not taught how to build a business. And then that's the bit that's missing, I feel, for a lot of people that are feeling pain in business. And to be able to alleviate that and to help people was something for me that was quite special. So I jumped at it. Yeah.
And it comes across, as an individual, that you are just passionate about helping people.
Yeah, genuinely, because
wherever you can, generally.
Yeah, always. I feel like it's my duty as a human. If I learn something that I know is going to benefit someone else that is of the same mindset or feeling a similar type of pain, then I feel like it's my duty to share that. We live in a world of abundance, and there's an abundance of knowledge, and there's been billions of people that have come before us, and I've learned that there's no problem that any human has been through that has not been experienced before by someone else. And the chances are it's been written about by someone somewhere, And if you can't find that exact book or that exact piece of knowledge, you can piece it together with multiple books or from multiple people and to get the answer that you want. And so if I can be a part of that, then that's a great thing for me. And also, I'm trying daily to become a better student and to learn every single day and to be different to that person who had the ego. And the more I become open to learning, the more I become open to seeking new teachers and new knowledge and new mentorship, the more successful and happier my life becomes. And so I feel like that's the route for me, and that's the path that I want to go down. And it gives me joy. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Kooks, I feel like, is that one of the twins I just had?
Yeah, it's one of the twins letting it loose. It's their wake up time. So sorry to everyone who's hearing that in the background.
We're going to have to do this again for sure.
Okay.
We've got minimum, this is a 3-parter with you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Or just because of the 3 main businesses that you're involved with, right? Because we've spent a lot of time talking about your family business.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely love. And I'm really hungry now because you've been talking about your dad's bhajiya and wings and stuff.
Oh yeah. He smashed them. He's using the air fryer now. He loses it when he gets new pieces of kit to try out, or like some new random ingredient he finds out. He'll be like, just turn up, yeah, try this. What is it? I'm not telling you, just try it. And sometimes it's a miss, and you're like, oh, I don't ever make that again. But other times it's really special. So yeah, it's you're lucky growing up in that type of environment where someone's always trying and creating something new. But the other two businesses, really interesting stories, especially especially Kushy Face. My I don't know how to describe it anymore because it started.
Well, you have because there's 2 Bears, which is really your would you call it a digital marketing agency?
Yeah, digital marketing.
You deal with kind of social media marketing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
so 2 Bears is basically telling the business stories of 80s and 90s babies who own businesses, because 80s and 90s babies have grown up with the internet coming to life, social media coming to life, the various versions of, but may not necessarily know how to utilize them and use them for business, and know how to tell their story, which is what I help people do, or what the business helps people do. The other one, Kushy Face, is started off as just boring large format printing, doing hoarding, signage, scaffolding wraps for property developers, but it's morphed and evolved now into more of a creative service where we bring clients ideas to life. So whether they've got a new office space that they've got and they want to have signage, they want designer wallpaper and printed floors and digital screens and all these other things, bespoke joinery, we can do all of that and build exhibition stands. So there's a lot that business does, but it is all about bringing people's ideas to life for their business. But the way that it started was with someone who's now an ex-friend, and it ended with that person in quite a challenging way when the twins were on their way. Like the guy basically owed me a ton of money now and left me in the lurch with the business. So that in itself is an interesting story. And I will say that the pain and the challenge of that situation during COVID, before my twins were born, probably put me at my lowest in terms of not knowing what I was going to do. And it provided the biggest springboard up for me to level up as a person and as a business person. So as painful as it was and as betrayed as I felt, I'm extremely grateful for the situation because it taught me so much. So yeah, there's that as well.
Yeah, that's a story for another day for sure. Yeah. Kooks, sorry, now I'm thinking Kushy Face, because I've actually, just while you were talking there about what Kushy Face does, I just had an idea for something that I wrote in my little ideas book.
Okay.
I was watching House of Gucci the other day.
Okay.
And it's an interesting story. Do you know the story?
I don't
know if you've seen the film.
No, I've not. I've not seen it.
Basically, Aldo Gucci had was it Aldo? What was his name, babe?
Michael.
Adam Driver's character. Anyway,
It was Michael.
Adam Driver, he's the son of the original Gucci. So it's the Gucci brothers found Gucci, turn it into the big luxury fashion house that it is. And then in the, I think it was in the late 80s, when his father died, Adam Driver, Kylo Ren Gucci, if you're into Star Wars, you'll get that. He basically takes the business over, and the girl that he marries, who's played by Lady Gaga, ultimately, spoiler alert, she has him killed.
Nice.
Yeah. I kind of, would I recommend the film? It's based on a book. I would probably read the book because the film is actually not very good. It's a waste of talent.
Okay.
And Jared Leto plays the main character's cousin. I think his name's Aldo Gucci, who's kind of was the designer, the creative.
Okay.
But, you know, was always looked at with disdain by his uncle. You know, there's one scene where he's got all these new designs and he's used all browns and pastels, which is something that is just not in the Gucci color palette.
Okay.
And his uncle basically looks at everything and he says, you must never, ever show these to anyone. He's like, oh, because, you know, they'll steal my ideas and so on. He's like, no, because you've just proved that you're like the most incompetent person in this entire family.
Oh, my word.
So anyway, the point is that as this, the scenes where, and Jared Leto, who's under a ton of makeup, he's doing this ridiculous Italian accent. He sounds like Luigi from Super Mario Kart.
Oh, no.
You know? Oh, you like my new design?
Oh, no.
It's really, yeah, and it's, oh God, it's just I mean, you'd rather that it's Ridley Scott as well, bro.
That's
Ridley
terrible.
Scott. And you'd rather that they either just had done it with Italian actors and done it in Italian with subtitles, or just let the actors use their natural voices.
Yeah.
Because they were all at it. Adam Driver's trying to do an Italian accent. Lady Gaga, they're all of them, right? Al Pacino doing an Italian accent is bad as well.
Sounds
right?
bad.
Jeremy Irons, you know, he's got that very rich Shakespearean, deep English voice, trying to do an Italian accent.
Never. You should never be doing that.
Exactly. Tell me about it. Anyway, so I had an idea for printed linings.
Right.
And that's what I was going to talk to you about. So anyway, we'll take that offline.
No worries.
Kooks, where can people find you online? Where can people, if anyone's kind of appetite has gone up and if there are any chili heads listening, where can they get hold of Mr. Singh's products?
So I would say the best place to connect with me online is Instagram. So Kooks Sahota, KOOKSSAHOTA. Or if you Google search Mr. Singhs online, so SINGHS. So just Google search Mr. Singhs online and they should find us.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I'll make sure I've got your Instagram. Your Instagram, definitely. Anyone listening to this who's on Instagram, follow Kooks for sure, because he imparts wisdom, if not once a day, several times a day. Like in the morning, first thing, because I always look for your stories. Because you'll always share something inspirational. So in the morning when I get up, check. When Kooks is up, he'll share something that he's been thinking about. On his way to the gym later on in the day, he'll share something that he's been thinking about. On his way back from the gym, you'll sometimes get a little bit of tidbit of information, which is just gold. So definitely follow him on Instagram.
I appreciate it.
Keep an eye out for his stories because they are absolute gold. And then I'm on the hunt for some Mr. Singh's crisps, because crisps are like my big weakness. So I'm going to do all my homework and post all the links and stuff as well. Kooks, thank you so much for your time today. You've been absolutely brilliant.
Cheers, mate.
It's always a good sign when the guest is doing 65-70% of the talking and I'm really, really quiet. So yeah.
No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation. I loved learning about the stories with KP and you know, everything that you've kind of been through in your insights as well. So I appreciate being on the podcast with you. I loved it.
Exactly. So you're going to come back for part 2 and 3. So
I'm ready.
We're going to talk about social media, and digital marketing, and then after that we'll get on to Kushy Face.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and talk about wrapping huge lorries and buildings and large format printing, NFTs.
Yeah, we'll talk about NFTs. Yeah, we'll talk about
NFTs and bringing them to life.
Yeah, that's definitely happening.
I now sound like a crypto expert. I was talking to some of the other Founders Club members online earlier in the week, and it was like, I keep getting approached about cryptocurrency and stuff. And so they're like, so do you know what it is? And I'm like, no, I have no clue. And I just did a head blown emoji. We'll work all that stuff out.
Yeah, we'll work on it.
Brilliant, Kooks. Thank you so much.
No worries, mate. Speak to you soon.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I apologise for the audio quality, particularly on my side. We had some technical issues, but hopefully the main messaging managed to come across. All of Kooks' links are in the show notes, and you must find him on Instagram at Kooks Sahota. That's KOOKSSAHOTA. Make sure you put a notification on for his stories because they are so motivational and inspiring. Speaking of Instagram, Tailoring Talk is now on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast. And I love feedback, so you can also email the show directly at tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com. That's it for this episode, and thank you once again for joining us. As I said at the top of the show, please remember to subscribe and review. You can also click the share button in your player to send the show on to people you know too. I'm watching Thunderball this weekend for the first time ever, and you know what that means. Our review of Goldfinger is coming very, very soon. Have a great week, and I'll see you on the next one.